Hello and welcome to the webinar, The Answer is Within. My name is Avital and I wanted to share this just because I keep seeing over and over again all the ways in which myself and others are seeking our happiness, our health, our success, our livelihood, whatever it might be, from something outside of ourselves, and not even always realizing that it comes from outside. And I've noticed that I keep landing in these places where I think I've got it. I've got the answer, and I just need to be here, soak this all up, and I will have the happiness and all the answers to life's questions. Or if I just follow what other people say, then it'll all be just fine. And this will get me to happiness. And after college, I got a really great job, and all through high school and college, I worked my entire life to get this great job. And then once I got that job, I was sitting there going, well, now what? What do I do? My whole entire life's work has been to get this job. So what do I do from here? I have nothing else in life left to do. And I really had to rework, what is my life's purpose? What am I doing here? What will continue to feed me over time? And we try out relationships. And, this is a common thing that we often want our relationships to feed us. And even when we have a really, really great partner, humans are still flawed. And so it's still hard to find that perfection of somebody else feeding you in a way. And if you were just getting fed through the relationship, what if your partner died the next day, or your partner got really sick, or something else happened that is unknown or unexpected? What would you do? So you would want to be able to find that happiness and that sustenance within your own self. And that's what we want to work on. And then here I am, I've been living in this beautiful community, and unless it's a spiritual community, but unless I do this work myself and take it in and live the teachings that are taught from within myself, I won't be happy either. Let's just take a moment, close our eyes, and just breathe nice and deep, breathing through your nose, sitting up tall, shoulders relaxed, heart is open. Let your breath flow smoothly and evenly, as if there's no limitation from your body. Breath can completely expand. Under your closed eyelids, just keep gazing slightly upwards at the point between the eyebrows, helping us direct our energy upwards to the way we hold our bodies when we're most happy. You can watch just with your mind, or feeling the sensations or listening to the sounds. Watch the breath. See if you can feel your breath flowing up and down through the center of your spine, the middle and oneness of your being. Once we get beyond that up and down flow, we'd have everything truly centered right in the center of the spine, everything channeled to the highest place. All happiness, all answers within hand's reach. We've commonly heard that we want to make sure that we're happy on our own before we get into relationships, and that we don't depend on things that are not reliable for that happiness. And what I want to do tonight is also get into the areas that we don't realize that we're also seeking something from outside. How do we open our eyes to all those things? The truth is that until we become fully self-realized, united and connected with Source, one with God, our fullest potential, however you want to view it, there's something that we're going to be trying to fulfill through other methods. What are those things? What are the things that get us into trouble? And how do we get out of that trouble? You can open your eyes if you'd like. And I wanted to start with 3 premises. So the first one I started to mention, which is that we all want to become fully self-realized. Just as the river wants to return to the level of the sea, humans want to reach that fullest potential, that place of complete peace, of calmness, joy, happiness, wisdom, power, sound, light, unity and connection with all beings and with God. And the next premise is that we are only agitated when something has to do with ourself. If it didn't have to do with ourself, we wouldn't care. There would be no inner agitation. So what we do is we start to manifest the world around us to reveal to us what is happening inside ourselves, because our desire is to become self-realized. If we're quiet enough, we'll be able to see it. But until we become perfectly quiet enough, life will show us what's going on inside of ourselves. And often we don't realize it, and we start to blame other people or other things for the frustrations we have or the things that aren't going very well. One of my pet peeves in friendship is flakiness or indecision or constantly changing plans. And I just get really frustrated, and I think, gosh, well, how can we continue this relationship or develop it if the other person is not reliable? Or how do I make plans? How do I have something to dive into? And I was actually playing around recently with a friend who does this. He's very much in the moment. And I was actually thinking, well, what if I did that? What if actually that's something that I want to do? Or is that something that I already do? And I just don't like that I do that. And I even tried it on him, and I felt like some plans were not going to be going that well for my schedule on that day, and I canceled them somewhat short notice. And there was no issue for him, and we've been able to continue to deepen our friendship. And then on another day, I thought we were going to be spending the whole day together. And it turned out that he could only spend the evening with me. And instead of getting frustrated by that, I thought, well, maybe this is a signal to me that actually I do want to spend most of this day on my own, and I have a lot of work to do. And then I could still have some time of connection with him. And that's exactly what happened. I spent the entire day getting a lot of work done and was very happy with the productivity that I had. And then I got to connect with him and even share with him some of the work that I had done. So what I ask you to do is think for a moment of something that bothers you about other people, or a situation where you put blame on someone or something else. And then ask yourself the question, is this maybe something that is true about myself, but I just don't like that factor in myself and would rather it not be true? Or is this something that would actually be good for me to cultivate. But because of my disappointment of not being able to, I'm trying to deny that that's actually a good quality in someone else. Or maybe this blaming or agitation is a signal for something else that needs to shift. Or, what if this person wasn't doing that? What do you get to be right about? Or what are you using that as a mask of because of some fear of failure or fear of not getting what you want? How are you using this to cover something up for yourself or as an excuse? You can take all these questions and investigate a little bit more later. But I just really start to see the connection here if we look at this on an individual level and take it on a bigger scale, that we do this with other religions, with other cultures. And imagine if we could actually tune in within our own selves to find what we are seeking, how much less we would care about what's going on in the world around us, and then less reverberation of negative impact back onto other people. Because we have what we want within ourselves. What if we could see that? Another fun game in connection with other people is a tug of war game. And I got this idea from a program that I've been taking called LoveWorks, and the coaches are Sonika Tinker and Christian Peterson. They were giving an example of needing a new car. One of them wanted to buy a really brand new, nice car. And the other one thought, that's too much money and we're too messy of a household. We have a dog and kids. We should just get a used car, something that we don't mind getting dirty. And so they kept going back and forth and fighting over this. And then they let go of the rope. And they just sat there for a moment, and the person who was battling for the nice car realized, well, what the other person saying it is true. I mean, yes, I would like this nice new thing, but it's not very realistic with our life situation. And then the person who was battling, this isn't realistic for us, said, well, gosh, it would be nice to have a nice car and some new gadgets. And what they came up with was, what if there's a better solution where we could put it all together and realize what we want within ourselves and trust that God's trying to bring that to us and bring us a greater message. And the message was to buy a nicer used car that had all of those gadgets and gizmos, but it wasn't so brand new that it was so expensive or that you were worried about the dog or the dirty kids messing the car up. And I think that this is just a great way to think about a lot of the challenges that we have. If we get agitated by something and then we just walk away because of the agitation and then we think the problem is gone because we walked away, we haven't actually resolved it. There's always a story that Swami Kriyananda, the founder of the organization I'm a part of, Ananda, that he liked to share. When he was in his guru's ashram, Paramahansa Yogananda, there was a gentleman there who had left partially because of frustration with another gentleman. Later on, he came back and he told Swami Kriyananda, that guy that really bothered me? Well, where I work now, there's 6 people just like him. So we really need to look inside and figure out, how are we going to resolve this? And not just walk away and thinking that it is done and gone. And I just like to think of God just shedding away these layers. And then from there, our energy can just flood upwards to that highest potential, the highest peak, to the seat of our highest consciousness, to the prefrontal lobe where we have the greatest sense of intuition. And Paramahansa Yogananda says that whatever you want others to be, first, be that yourself. Then you will find others responding in like manner to you. And I gave you an exercise of thought to work on more of the behavioral level. You can do more of those in LoveWorks through the program that I mentioned. And meditation is also designed to help give us those resolutions, because when we do get quiet, that's often where we get the answers and the wisdom that we need to resolve the conflicts that we have, or to understand ourselves more deeply. We also feel a great sense of peace when we meditate. And when we feel peace, we automatically care less about what is happening outside of ourselves. One of the other interesting things that I've been experimenting too with how to drop away these layers and really just connect soul to soul and let go of the ego things is through partner dancing. And I started something new recently called blues dancing, which has less form than other types of partner dancing. So people dance more from who they really are, but it also doesn't matter who's leading, whether it's man or woman. And if man dance with men, or women dance with women, or a big woman dances with a little guy, I just notice when I look around the room that form is completely gone, and that people are trying to just open themselves up and tap in from here and be guided by what to do through the heart connection and through the soul connection, really seeing the true essence of the people that they're moving with. And I just find this great flood of energy rising upwards whenever I can do this, when I can just shed the layers and just be present with what is. One of the other things that I often talk about is health. I didn't want to dwell on it too much in this webinar because I have a lot of other webinars that dive into health. But a couple of the main points that I like to bring out is our potential to heal ourselves. But even more importantly, what I mean by healing ourselves is being truly happy despite what is happening with the body. There's so many ways of natural healing that we really can heal a lot of what has conjured up from within ourselves. But we don't always know what our karma is. So what we want to work with is what we can definitely control. And that's our attitudes, our feelings, our inner self, our inner life, our mind, and our emotions. And one of the areas you can look at is some of the healing methods that are out there. And I like to look at just an example of, even though I'm not a teenager anymore, my face still sometimes breaks out. But I notice that if I'm eating well, if I'm sleeping and I have less stress, and if I'm sleeping at certain times, earlier in the evening, closer to when the sun actually goes down, then my health is better, then my skin is clearer, the color of my skin even looks better, and it doesn't break out. But when some of those things happen, the stress, the lack of sleep, or eating foods I might be allergic to, my face breaks out. So that's just a reminder of looking more inwards to find the healing of what's going on. We can apply topical treatments to the skin, but we can also keep the skin pure by what we're doing inside. And I don't mean to talk about this just for the sake of beauty, but just as an example of what happens when we work with our inner world and how that reflects in the outer world. And the physical manifestations sometimes are a reflection of what's happening in the inner world. Louise Hay really coined this in her book, Heal Your Body. And she just noticed a lot of common symptoms with the clients that she was working with. And she actually coined, if people have all different physical symptoms, what's likely the emotional or mental cause of that symptom, and what's an affirmation that they could use to overcome that challenge. So that's another little toolkit for you. One of the things I notice is with chiropractors, I've never fully believed in chiropractic unless it's coupled with something else. When we adjust the physical body so that the bones realign themselves, if the muscles haven't been reworked, then the bones won't continue to hold themselves in that position. Part of the reason sometimes for this misalignment is because one muscle is stronger than another, or one is more stretched out and the other one is tighter. And so if we just rebalance the bones but not the muscles, the bones will fall back into the place they were before according to where the muscles are. So a doctor can come in and readjust the body, but if the work isn't done internally, we might not be able to hold that adjustment. And the same thing can go with medication. Many medications often help control you so that you can sustain yourself, so that you can continue in a fluid manner. But how many times could you stop doing the medication and then be fine? Be truly, truly healed and not be dependent on the medication anymore. What are those possibilities to getting free of medications? Some of us do have that chance. For me, I was on a very high dosage of medication for Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disorder where the body attacks the thyroid gland. And the trick was, if I was being given thyroid medication, then my thyroid would stop working and my body wouldn't have something to attack. But what I noticed over time was actually I had even more of those antibodies of attacking my body. While I was able to live life and sustain myself, I wasn't quite sure that the challenge that was really the underlying problem was getting healed. And granted, I trust the doctors and I had no other resolution, so I continued with the medication, and I just tried to do my best with all sorts of natural healing methods, through physical, through energetic, through emotional, through mental. Then when I started meditating and really drawing a higher power, drawing God into the practice, I had a strange occurrence where over time I needed less and less medication. It's been about 2 years that I haven't been on medication, and whether or not this is something that will permanently sustain, I definitely noticed that the idea of drawing in the light through meditation and flushing out the darkness seemed to help a lot, at least with the healing that I have had, with the challenges that I've had. So I just encourage all of us to really keep ourselves open to what could be the possibilities out there. I wanted to give you just one technique, which is one of my favorite techniques. I've been teaching a lot out of this book, How to Achieve Glowing Health and Vitality. And I even have an online course through Online with Ananda, where you can work with all of these techniques over time and get guidance along the way. And this is the heal any body part technique. I find that it works not just with muscles being tight or sprained muscles, but also even like if I have a stomach ache, if I have a headache, so some internal challenges as well. And just take a moment to think of a body part that you might be having a challenge with right now. And close your eyes, sit up tall, and just lightly tense all of the muscles in that area around that body part. We're going to hold that for 10 seconds. Slowly release the tension completely. And tense again, holding. And this time while you're holding, also use a visualization of your mind, in your mind, just surrounding that body part with light. Healing, beautiful golden light. And release the tension. And tense again. And this time you can imagine the powers of that highest potential out there, or source, or God, whatever is really powerful to you. Imagine the hand coming in and sending healing energy and light to that body part while you're tensing. And then release. You can continue this tensing and releasing a total of 10 times and do it 3 times a day. But I've had so many times where I've had a serious condition and within a couple days, completely gone. I had sprained my ankle a couple days before a big trip to India. I was determined to go on this trip to India. So I tried the technique, and after a couple days, I was completely fine. I was able to go on the trip without any challenges at all and walk and run and do everything. So this is another toolkit to keep in your shed. And moving on from here, I'm really talking a lot about these external things. And sometimes we take it into a material object or into sense pleasure or into wanting to be a success. But we're only happy as long as we have those things, or as long as those things are true. What if we didn't need to be dependent on those things? And Paramahansa Yogananda says that trying to seek happiness outside of ourselves is like trying to lasso a cloud. Or Swami Kriyananda has talked about trying to push the entire t-shirt underneath water. You push it down in one end and then it pops up in another. So what are we going to do to really create lasting happiness without something that we can't be dependent on? Or the moment we don't have it, we don't feel that happiness. And what about things that happen in life and we shift our mood depending on what happens? We lose our job, we get sad, we get a raise, we get happy. But circumstances, as Yogananda says, are neutral. It's really what our reactions are to them that we can choose. He says, your actual reality lies not in outer things, but in your inner reaction to them. And he also says, objective conditions are always neutral. It is how to react to them that makes them appear sad or happy. This last quote, and a couple of other ones I've mentioned, are from this book, How to Be Happy All the Time. This is another quick book to help give you some ideas of finding those answers within. And when we look at specific questions that we want to find answers to, I always enjoy remembering after I came to Ananda for yoga teacher training, I was living elsewhere for a few years, and I kept writing back to one of my teachers here all sorts of questions. And after a while, she wrote to me and she just said, seek the answers within and you will find what you need. And I thought maybe she was just tired of me sending her questions, and so she came up with an excuse for me to just stop asking her and bothering her with all these questions. But actually, I did start to see answers within. And I found that I could find them. I had a job that was very intense, and it was at a fitness facility, a YMCA, that had over 12,000 members, and I had over 120 staff people that were working for me. There was just a lot going on. There wasn't anybody in my job for over 6 months, and then my boss quit. And all of a sudden, I didn't have anyone to reflect off of to confirm that my ideas could work or to get other ideas from. And I realized, though, I already had ideas, and I just had to move forward with them, and everything would be fine. I really already had a lot within me, but I needed him to go away so that I could see that. There's these amazing gifts that are within us. I've also been taking classes from a psychic intuitive named Marcy Calhoun, and she says that she's not trying to teach us to become intuitive, to learn how to be intuitive, but rather to trust our own intuition. It's all there within us. We just need to believe that it's there and to find it. Now, we might be going inside and coming up with these wonderful ideas, but remember, I've mentioned that most of us are not already fully self-realized. So how do we actually trust that the introspection that we came up with is true intuition from a higher source? We could definitely ask somebody else that we trust to get an objective opinion, and if they're fully self-realized, then we know we can trust it. But how many people do we have around us that are fully self-realized? So we still have a question of what can we utilize to help us? And there's a passage written yes, another book, from the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. And this is where Swami Kriyananda writes out Paramhansa Yogananda's teachings about the Bhagavad Gita. This passage I find to be very helpful to let us know how we can gauge whether or not we can trust our own intuition. And Paramhansa Yogananda said that introspection helps and is indeed essential, but even more important, however, is the intuitive guidance of a wise guru, especially from within. Just keep that in mind for a moment. What lamp has man got to guide him through the long night of ignorance? A blind understanding, was Omar Khayyam's reply. Omar Khayyam wrote the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, which is a mystical poetry which gives a lot of wisdom, just like the Bhagavad Gita does. The blind must consult introspection, but introspection must be treated cautiously, for it is already tainted by the very ignorance it seeks to dispel. There are certain guidelines that can help one to understand which side has been the winner in any psychological battle. One guideline is an inner expansion of happiness and freedom. Another is an expansion of consciousness. A third, and even more important one, is an expansion of sympathy. Fourth, but equally important as all the others, is inner calmness. If you have this book, what I read is on page 42, and it continues to elaborate a little bit more throughout the whole book. So you can get some more tips there on how do we gauge the use of our intuition. And the interesting thing is they talk about the guru from within. Because if we have a guru and we trust them to really have all the answers and basically to be God, and we just go to them for the answers, then how do we really get there? So we want to find that guru within us. We want to still find how do we be that guru within us. And Swami Kriyananda was really a big fan of teaching people to be independent of him. You know, we consider him a channel for, or Paramhansa Yogananda, and a really, really high soul while he was alive. And a lot of us really, really trusted his guidance more than anyone else that we knew. And one of his longtime disciples who had been studying with him for over 40 years, Asha Praver, she said, Swami has always said that he much prefers an honest argument over a mindless yes. A mindless yes is not a yes. It's a firecracker waiting to go off. An honest argument is the process of coming to the truth you're looking for. And I just like to think of Ananda as an example of Swami Kriyananda's success in training other people, because we barely have had a hitch of a challenge from the time that Swami Kriyananda passed away and from other people taking over all of the areas of leadership. He had already trained us to be independent of him and to really learn to seek that guidance and those answers within our own selves. And an interesting thing, I just recently watched a movie called Kumare. The lead character in Kumare who plays this guru called Kumare, he actually grew up in the West from a family from the East. So he had enough of a knowledge to fake being an Indian guru in the West. And he convinced all sorts of people that he's a guru, but his main goal was really to help people to find those answers within. And if they could conjure up that this man who felt like he was any other person was a guru, he felt like they could conjure that up within their own selves, that they could find that feeling within their own selves. If they could believe it, and if they could see it in another, why not see that ability and those answers they seek within their own selves? I find this funny thing every now and then. I use my Facebook page mostly just to share inspiration and the spiritual teachings that have inspired me. And every now and then, I find somebody writes to me and asks me to be their guru, or asks for their blessing or guidance in the business that they want to start. And they don't want to start until I give them my blessing. And here I am sitting thinking, gosh, I really just like them. I don't know what I have that's any more than them, that they really want to seek within themselves to find that guru and to find those answers. And so I just want to keep encouraging, where do we do that within ourselves? And how do we find that more deeply? How do we find the essence and the truth? I found that different times in my life, when people see a picture of me, they create sometimes a feeling of what I must be feeling. And actually, I'm in this really challenging time in life, but they've created this great fantasy that maybe I'm in this amazing relationship and living this romance, or that when I travel, I'm having all these adventures. But actually, often when I travel just so I can be alone. And sometimes I've felt the same inside, but I've changed the words that I use, and I notice that people's reaction to me shifts. But nothing inside me felt like it was different depending on the words that I used. So what if the person that I'm interacting with could tap in more deeply and see that true essence, whether it's good or bad? And instead of the words, what if we could go deeper and go beyond the obvious? And one thing that I like to bring up, that even our guru has mentioned, my guru Paramahansa Yogananda, who's pictured right here, is that 50% of the work that we want to make happen, the shifts that we have, come from God's grace. 25% comes from the Guru's grace, and 25% comes from ourselves. And within that piece of ourselves, we need to put 100% of the effort in there. So we can't just sit there and rely on God's grace or rely on the Guru's grace for it to happen. But I want to think too that actually God and the Guru are within us. Because if everything is God and everything is united, then all of these things exist within us. So let's go deeper. Let's really go within to the true essence, not so much what we're presented on the outside, but what's really happening on the deeper layer. On Sundays at Ananda, we have a weekly program that we do. And part of this program that we do is reading the Festival of Light, which is a really inspirational piece that Swami Kriyananda wrote. And it's a great reminder of this path that we go on to get to full self-realization. And I thought I would read a piece of this Festival of Light. A fledgling bird once flew out into the world, gained strength and wisdom, its parents told it, and what you acquire, share with others, even as we have shared with you, for you are part of all that is. Thus, Lord, we left you countless eons ago. Ours was a holy mission. You charged us to learn great lessons from life, to be fruitful in the gifts you have given us, to expand and multiply them. Alas, we abandoned our mission. Instead, we hoarded selfishly, nor did wisdom come to us when repeatedly we lost everything we had. For the young bird in flight, for the first time, gloried in its newfound strength. It began to think, how foolish I would be to share my strength with anyone. What else is wisdom, if not to keep what is mine for myself? And so we, like that bird, entered upon the second stage of the soul's long journey away from its home in God, the stage which is called the revolt. The bird's brief day was like eons of our time. When afternoon came, it entered a storm cloud and soon found itself struggling for its life. Wind and rain lashed at its wings. The more it fought back, the weaker it became. "Give yourself into my hands," cried the wind. "To your strength I can then add my own." At last the little bird heeded this counsel. Then suddenly it found itself soaring joyously high above the clouds. Hours passed, and night fell. The little bird grew afraid. "How," it cried, "can I fly in this darkness?" And the night whispered, "Fear not, for lo, peace awaits you in the unknown. Surrender to me, and your strength will be renewed." And after a time, the tiny rebel surrendered, and found the night's counsel true. And rain and sky and grassy fields all sang, "Behold, your very strength to fly has never been your own. Look to the source of all power, if you would conquer fear and weakness." And the bird asked, "Where can I find that source?" And they answered, "Seek it in the farthest depths of being, in your own self." Thus gradually the bird entered that third stage of the journey, which is called the quest. We now, like that little bird, have come to realize that buffeting winds are life's way of giving us strength and courage. That even fear, like shadows on a statue, gives light and substance to hope. From the depths of unknowing, Lord, we cry out to Thee. Is there no lasting purpose to our lives? Behold, all that we thought was lightness, was light, was but darkness. Who are we in reality? For what end were we made? Ever and again, through your awakened sons, the answer comes. The forming of stars and moons and planets, of galaxies revolving on the tides of space, of drifting continents, upheaving mountains, snowy wastes, and dark, silent ocean deeps, has but this for its design: the birth of life, and with life's birth, the dawn of self-awareness, passage through dim corridors of waking consciousness, to emerge at last into infinite light, into perfect joy. O children of light, forsake the darkness. Know that forever you and He are one. What if we really knew that God, that highest power and highest potential, that thing that's bigger than us, that unites us with all, is really within us, deep in the depths of our own being? So just to summarize a couple of the points to help you out, I've mentioned meditation a couple of times. I've mentioned looking at what has manifested in your outer world, including your physical body, as a reflection of what's going on in your inner world. And rather than be mad at the challenges that it presents, use it as wisdom to understand yourself more deeply, to give you guidance in the direction to go, to give you answers to the questions that you have, to help you learn to accept yourself more deeply. One of the other fun techniques that I use is dance. I've mentioned that a little bit. But what I've been trying to do through the Expanding Light, the retreat center here at the spiritual community Ananda where I live, is use movement as a way to help us understand ourselves. And with that, we can create healing when we shed away the layers. From there, the energy can be focused upwards. And we can also use specific tools to help channel our energy upwards. There's part of how movement helps is because really there's a lot more that the mind can conceive and that can be put into words. And movement is a bigger vocabulary. And so through movement and through others' reflection of our movement and through our reaction to others' movement, we can help gain that greater understanding. And there'll actually be another weekend retreat at the Expanding Light the weekend of December 12th through 14th. But if you want to also just hone more directly into all of the variety of aspects that I've been mentioning throughout this webinar, then please come to the full weekend retreat at the Expanding Light. The Answer is Within. And the next one is February 20 through 22. There's a link to the weekend program included in the Showcase tab, if you can open that from Google Hangout. Otherwise, I'll include that in the YouTube description so you can have a direct link to this course. And if you haven't already, have questions come up, you can either open the Q&A tab or the chat window and post some questions in there. And I'd be happy to answer those. Or if you have any more comments or feedback of things that got opened up for you that you want to share, then please feel free to type those and share them with us. And if you wanted to connect with me later, then you can always email me just by writing to Avital, A-V-I-T-A-L, at Ananda, ANANDA.org. Okay. I don't see any questions, so I'll go ahead and sign off. Many blessings, much joy, love, peace, and happiness to you.